Hello and welcome to the Rays of Hope program. I'm your host for today, Mary Foley, and I'm so glad that you've joined us for a very important topic. And I hope that you come away from today's show with information on how to keep your children safe and the children in your lives safe. You may not know that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And in 1983, Congress felt like it was so important that we keep our children safe that they designated April that month in 1983. In 1989, a Virginia grandmother took that call personally. When she lost her grandson to child abuse, she decided to wear a blue ribbon to honor abused children that she does know and those that she doesn't know, so that the memory of her grandson would live on. Today, we're going to ask you to make it personal for yourself as well. We're going to ask you to learn. We're going to ask you to buy into a cause that's very important and to join millions across our nation as we celebrate Child Abuse Prevention Month. Since 1989, that blue ribbon has not only come to signify a memory of those that have been abused, but it's also come to celebrate those who do the work every day to keep children safe. And today on our show, I'd like to introduce you to several guests who do this work day in and day out and are here to educate you, here to educate me on the importance of child abuse prevention. So welcome to Bridgett Maxie and to Melissa Brown. Thank you both for being here. So Bridgett, you have been on the Rays of Hope program before, but yes, for those that are new viewers, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm a supervisor at the Department for Community-Based Services, formerly known as Social Services, and we're charged with investigating allegations of child abuse and neglect. We also investigate allegations of adult abuse, but those investigations are handled by a separate team, and I supervise the team that investigates child abuse.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. And Melissa, you are new to our program, so tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I work for the University of Kentucky Targeted Assessment Program, and we have a collaboration or a partnership with the cabinet that is about 10 years old now. We're in 30 some odd counties across the state. We've been in McCracken County for about 8 years. And we work with the parents who are involved with both the Child Protective Services part of the cabinet as well as on public assistance to help them address barriers to family self-sufficiency, which includes being able to provide a stable and safe environment for their children.
Wow, you have also a very big job, so thank you for being here. So for the purpose of the program, when we refer to the cabinet, that means the Department for Community-Based Services or Social Services.
That's correct.
So you all have your hand in these investigations and then rely on folks like Melissa to provide support and to provide that help. So. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and I know that you all do this work after the abuse has already occurred, and so you're going to have a very different take on how important that this month is. But before we get into those prevention type activities and those prevention type discussions, what I'd like to do is establish, is it really a problem? Is child abuse really a problem in rural Western Kentucky? We're not a big city. How would you answer that, Bridgett?
In 2008, the cabinet investigated approximately over 5,800 allegations of child abuse alone, involving over 7,000 children. So the problem is a lot larger than people would imagine.
And so, do you find that people are shocked by those numbers when you talk to people in the community?
Yes, sometimes.
So, tell me a little bit about what you do in terms of what is social services. What are some misconceptions about social services, and what really do you do to help the community?
We investigate allegations of child abuse and neglect involving emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, dependency reports, as well as neglect reports. In doing that, we assist the families. Probably the largest misconception with our agency is that people think that social workers just come and take your children. Actually, our job is quite the opposite of that. It's our job, and we're charged by statute to do everything that we can to keep the children in the home as long as it can be done safely. So basically, throughout the investigation process, we do an assessment of the family's needs, and then we refer community partners like Melissa to assist in helping the family, helping the adults and the children with their issues so the children can remain safe in the home.
Well, and I think it's so interesting that you talk about that misconception, because I do think that that is out there, that social services is not there to assist, but rather to interfere or to remove. And so I think for folks to learn that is a very important piece, that you are there to assist. And so, Melissa, when social services works with you or contacts you, from that point forward, what is your partnership with social services and with the family?
From the first time that I meet with a client, I am involved in, first of all, assessing that client. And we're called the Targeted Assessment Program because we target really 4 areas that the cabinet knew instinctively, and we have certainly found in our work with clients 4 areas that commonly families involved with social services are struggling with.
Okay.
And those include mental health issues, substance abuse, intimate partner violence, and learning problems. And learning problems is not always a learning difficulty or a learning disability, but sometimes a learning deficiency, like they dropped out of high school and are not able to find employment to support their children. So we do as thorough and as holistic an assessment as possible, and try to help many times clients in the very beginning address things like housing, getting signed up for welfare and food stamps if they're eligible and are not receiving those. Anything that we can do to engage that client and to build some rapport and trust with that client. And then sort of later in the process, once that relationship is established, try to move them towards addressing problems in any of those major 4 areas that I mentioned: mental health, substance abuse, intimate partner violence, and learning problems. So it really is kind of a long process of engaging the client and building rapport with the client, and then helping them move to a place where they decide, maybe this is something that I need to address.
And so, Melissa, for you, as you watch this process unfold, and you are dealing with those 4 major areas, is it your experience that those 4 areas of difficulty often do contribute to that child abuse?
Absolutely, and that's really how we assist the cabinet with on the prevention side of things is, hopefully if we can, whether children are in the home or have been removed and the goal is to return them to the home, if we can help parents address those issues, then we can theoretically decrease the odds that there'll be repeat reports and that family will have multiple involvements with the cabinet.
And so, Bridgett, from your perspective, when you are able to, solicit the help of these types of programs and community partners, and those families are receptive to that help, what is the outcome for the family compared to those maybe families who don't receive this type of assistance?
Well, the outcome for successful intervention is that the children will remain in the home and that the family will progress and address all of their issues so that the children can remain safe in the home. If the family is unsuccessful in the service referrals or uncooperative, a lot of times families are uncooperative in referrals because they're just not at that place where they're ready to receive help, as Melissa was referring to. Sometimes those children have to be placed out of the home, and there comes the misconception. So the last option is to physically remove the children from the home, and the first option is always to keep them in the home and to assist the family with their barriers and make referrals to assist their needs.
So would it then be a logical and correct conclusion that if a child has been removed, there's been a list of options that have already been exhausted before that point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I guess in terms of Child Abuse Prevention Month, here we are in April, we're joining the nation in honoring children who have been abused, memorializing children who have passed away because of abuse, but we are also celebrating workers just like you all for the work that you do to help stop this vicious cycle. So what is this work like for you personally when you are able to encounter a family that is cooperative and successful? I'll start with you, Bridgett, and then we'll move to you, Melissa.
It can be very rewarding. Actually, this past weekend I just saw a person that I helped, and it's very rewarding to see them where struggled and are having difficulties, and then to actually see them doing well, their family doing well, able to maintain themselves, have some self-sufficiency and some pride about themselves and their family. So it's very rewarding. It's also very rewarding to see the children progress and to improve. So.
Melissa, what about you?
Well, as Bridget said, certainly not all of the families that they work with, children have been removed from the home, but I guess the most memorable clients are those whose children are removed and then they're able to have them returned to the home. And when you feel like, as a community partner, or I'm sure Bridget as a social worker, when you feel like you've been part of the process that helps that to happen, that's a very nice feeling, because parents are very excited when they are able to accomplish what they need to accomplish to get their children back home.
Well, I can't imagine what that would be like to actually see them reunited and to know that they're safe and that they're on that road to recovery. We don't have a lot of time left before we take a break, but one thing that I would like to talk about for viewers that are watching, that maybe they have a nagging suspicion that somebody that they know or love is being abused, either emotionally, physically, sexually, or they're being neglected. What do they do?
If you have any concerns, or even if you suspect abuse or neglect, you can call any local community-based services office and just report those concerns. You're not required to leave your name. You can report those concerns anonymously. It does help the investigators if you feel comfortable leaving your name or a contact number, because that is a collateral contact and it assists them in their investigation. But if you have any concerns of abuse or neglect, just contact a local community-based services office and just ask to speak to a worker, and then we'll be glad to assist you in making that report.
Okay, and then I also want to add there, the Purchase Area Sexual Assault Center helps with third-party reporting, which basically means somebody can call us and tell us their concerns, and we can call on their behalf. So the most important thing is to go ahead and make that report or make that phone call. And then are people in the community allowed to contact your agency without social services? And if so, how would they do that?
The bulk of our referrals come from the cabinet, but we can take self-referrals from clients. We can take referrals from anybody in the community as long as they meet our eligibility criteria, which include being at least 200% of poverty or below in terms of their income. They have to be a resident of McCracken County. If there is involvement with the cabinet and children have been removed, there has to be a reunification plan. Okay. But as long as they meet our eligibility criteria, then we can take referrals from anybody, including clients themselves.
And how do they find you listed in the phone book?
We are not listed in the phone book, but we are co-housed in the cabinet, the local cabinet offices. My co-worker Norman Howard is in the HIP building, which most people know as the Welfare and Food Stamp office, and I'm in the Benford building with Bridgett, which is the Social Services or Protection and Permanency office.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for being here, and we hope that you will stay with us, because next we're going to focus on children and their voice before the court as we interview Peggy Bennett from CASA. Bridgett will remain with us to talk about Child Abuse Prevention Month, so don't go away. Hello and welcome back to the Rays of Hope program. I'm your host, Mary Foley, and we're talking today about Child Abuse Prevention Month. And joining us, we have Bridgett Maxie with the Department for Community-Based Services. You're coming back for the second half. And we have a new guest, Peggy Bennett, and you are the Executive Director of the CASA program in Graves County. So welcome to both of you. Bridgett, for viewers that are just now joining us for the second half, I'm going to let you say who you are and what you do, and then Peggy will do the same for you.
I'm Bridgett Maxie. I'm a supervisor at McCracken County Intake Social Services. I'm the supervisor over the investigative unit. We investigate allegations of child abuse and neglect. Our department also investigates adult abuse, but we have a separate team that's charged with that responsibility. So I supervise the individuals that investigate allegations of abuse and neglect in regards to children.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. And Peggy, what about you?
Yes, I work with the Graves County Child Advocacy Program, and we are in Mayfield. And part of our program is the educational piece of the program, which we recently did partner with PASAC to go into the schools and to educate the children on child abuse prevention, which is so important. And then the other part of the program is CASA. And a lot of people know that CASA is all over the world, and it's CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. And I do oversee all the volunteers that go out and advocate for the children that have been victims of abuse and neglect, and work hand in hand with social services and the guardian items.
And so, thank you for being here. That's a lot also that you do. And so when you say you work in partnership with social services, tell me what that partnership looks like when the family is involved. What does that family see between the two of you? And either one of you can go first.
Well, as far as our agency is concerned, I mean, CASA is court appointed, and once our agency receives that court order, then it's our job to assist them with any information that they would need to help them advocate for the child. You know, they review our reports and look at our information. We also welcome them into our facility to help supervise visits and monitor those. Sometimes a CASA advocate will go along with a social worker on outings with foster children or other children. So they do several things hand in hand with our agency, but our main goal with them is to assist them in providing them the information that they need so that they're able to form an opinion to be an advocate for the child.
In the court setting?
In the court setting, yes.
Okay. So Peggy, when you talk about being a court-appointed special advocate or a voice of the child before the court, that sounds like an enormous responsibility to speak on behalf of a child to the legal system. And so why do you think that that is an important role for children who are in the system?
Because oftentimes when you're in a court setting, you are hearing everything that everybody else has to say, the attorneys, the judge, the guardian items. But oftentimes you don't hear what the child is saying. So our role is when we go out and gather information and we're speaking with the child, one of the very questions we ask that child is, what is it that you want for us to tell the judge? What do you want the judge to know? And they may say, I want to go back home, or I don't want to go back home. And what we tend to always make sure we say that, we'll make sure your voice is heard. However, your request may not be something that can be granted at this time because it may not be in your best interest to maybe be placed back home at that time. But it's still important for the judge to hear their voice.
Well, and I think that's such an amazing opportunity. Sometimes I think in our efforts to be in the best interest of the child, we sometimes, the systems that are in place can overlook the child. So to be their voice, I'm sure is an amazing opportunity. You mentioned that volunteers do this work. Can you tell us how the program is set up and how does it operate?
Well, the cases that we receive are, they come from the court, and generally what happens is I'll get a call from the clerk's office saying that we have a temporary removal hearing and we need you to attend. I'll attend that hearing and the judge will decide at that point whether or not she wants a CASA on that case. I will say that our cases, the judge would tend to put a CASA on the most severe cases, cases that where there has been some abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and the neglect cases. Once we get the case, I bring it back to the office and I read over the case and I look and see in terms of my volunteers who I can match this child or children with. I contact that volunteer, they come in and we talk briefly about the case without disclosing a lot of information because it is confidential. Once that volunteer has decided that, I would like to take that case, then I assign the case to them. They immediately go out and they visit with the child. And sometimes that first visit, it's the child has kind of got a wall. So it takes time to build that relationship, to build that trust. Once the trust is built, we go out and we gather information pertaining to the case. And at the end, before the next court date, we have to file a report with the court on the information that has been gathered. And we make a recommendation at that point of what we feel is in the best interest of that child, whether it is for them to continue to stay out of the home or to be returned to the home. And the report is based on facts. It must be facts. It mustn't be something that we just feel. It has to be facts based. And if the child is to remain out of the home, then we start working with social services on the case plan that they have made out for the parents and the child. We attend the visits. We observe visits to see just how the child is interacting with the parents. And again, all this is in the end, to make a recommendation as to what we still feel is in the best interest of the child. Just another set of eyes on that case.
Well, and I'm thankful for more than one set of eyes and as more than one person being involved. And I really feel like that is really where the show today has really underscored the importance of those support systems in the community, those support systems personally and locally. And so we talked with Melissa Brown at the beginning about how the community can come along and support the parent and help them overcome those barriers and help them get the support that they need. Bridgett, you have talked about the support for the children, but there's a separate team for adults. You're coming along and saying, we want to make sure that the voice of the child is heard. And so when we take that comprehensive look and we tie that back to Child Abuse Prevention Month, as two people that do this work every day, I'm going to ask you, how important is it that children and families have strong support systems in place as it relates to child abuse prevention?
It's crucial. I mean, it's critical. The families that we see that have very limited support systems are the families that tend to have more complex problems, that tend to have issues that are more intense than some of the other families. Families that have larger support systems, we tend to see that their children remain in the home because they have somebody that can help them when they're frustrated, somebody that can help them when they need to run an errand versus leaving their children home alone. I mean, so it's very crucial.
Peggy, what is your take?
I would just echo that. The only thing that I would add is that the stronger the support, the less of the reoccurrence. You know, if you have a strong supporting cast, you may not see that case back in the system again. If you don't, typically it's going to reoccur over and over again. So I do echo everything she just said. It starts with social services, having a CASA, having family support, having teachers and school support. You have to have a supporting cast in order for all of this to work.
Well, and I'm thinking about the viewer that's watching our program today, and we have brought a large educational piece today to talk about Child Abuse Prevention Month and where it originated and resources available in the community. But I'm thinking about that mom that's watching, or that Sunday school teacher that's watching, or that Girl Scout leader or Boy Scout leader that's watching, people that can come along and be what we would call, I guess, a non-formal form of support, so that these more formal mechanisms are never needed. What would you say to those people that are flipping the channel and they think, oh, this doesn't apply to me, I don't have a child that needs a CASA worker, and I certainly don't have a child in the system, this doesn't apply to me? What would you say to them about their role in child abuse prevention and their role in providing those support systems to kids in their community?
Well, I would encourage them to become involved in any child's life, whether it be a child at school or a child that they go to church with. A lot of your local Friskies or family resource centers in the community and the schools have a lunch buddy program where you can volunteer to eat lunch with a child a couple of times a month, and just little things. I mean, you would think that wouldn't be important to a child, but it's very important to them. They will never forget that, that communication, that friendship, and sometimes that's all the children have to look forward to, and sometimes it gives them that outlet, that adult outlet. So if you don't have any children, or don't work in a government agency. I mean, just become involved in any child's life and volunteer to do anything to help a child, because you would be surprised how much of an impact it would have on their life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Peggy.
Again, I would say the same thing. Being a volunteer, even if you didn't want to become a CASA volunteer or a volunteer for purchase area sexual assault, there's so many other things that a person can do. I am personally a part of the Graves County High School Mentor Program. That's another program where you are being a mentor to teenage boys and girls who are struggling in school and possibly could not graduate, but sometimes all they need is that extra boost, somebody that believes in them, somebody that would take the time, a few hours a month to take the time with them, send them an email, simple things that we can do to encourage a child, to help them. So I would encourage that a person out there that if they don't want to commit to something like CASA or purchase area sexual assault, to do the small things. That child in church that looks like they just need an encouraging word, just a simple word of encouragement is a lot, and it goes a long ways.
Well, and I think to go back to Bridgett, what you said, that this past year 7,000 kids were affected. Those are the ones you know about.
Right.
Our agency, the ones we've seen, already we're in the second quarter going to we'll go over the numbers we served last year. Those are just the ones we know about. CASA, those are just the ones you know about. So it really is those hands and hearts reaching out in your local community, in your local spheres of influence to really make that difference. And the research does suggest that children who just have one healthy adult in their life are insulated against so many problems, many of those that Melissa spoke with us about at the first, the substance abuse and learning deficiencies and all of those types of things. So I would like to thank both of you for the difference that you make every day in the lives of children. Thank you for being here. And before I let you go, I just want to ask first you, Peggy, and I don't know if this applies to you, Bridgett, so if it does, just jump in. How do people volunteer for CASA?
They can contact me at the Mayfield Graves County Child Advocacy Program, and our phone number is in the phone book, and it's 251-2060 extension 10. And then what I do is get the call and send out a packet, and I would love to have more volunteers.
And Bridgett, are there ways that people in the community can assist social services or help any needs that you all have?
Not directly. I mean, to assist us, or really to assist any child, if you suspect abuse or neglect, to just call and make that report, and don't be afraid to do that. Sometimes that's the beginning step to assist a child.
Well, and just as Peggy said earlier, that extra set of eyes, really all of us are to be that extra set of eyes, that extra set of ears, that extra hand, that extra offer of support. And so really I think that is the challenge today. So in closing, blue ribbons. Peggy, you have on your blue ribbon.
I do have my blue ribbon.
So folks may see those blue ribbons all around the 8-county purchase area. That's what that means. That's supporting child abuse prevention. Pinwheels are also up.
Absolutely.
Those represent the number of reports for that county. So we want to keep it in front of folks' eyes this month.
Great.
Thank you both for being here, Bridgett. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewer, for yet again giving us your valuable commodity of time as you learn about the community, you learn about the children, you learn about the problems, and you commit to become a part of the solution. I'm Mary Foley with the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center. If we can be of assistance to you, please do not hesitate to contact us. And on behalf of our board, our staff, our volunteers, and these folks here, our guests on our program today, please make that difference in the life of a child.